Hello everyone and welcome to this video which is in our human game series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and slightly unusually for the channel we're looking at a top and recent game, and this is a game between Magnus Carlsen and Brewington Hardaway from the FIDE World Rapid in 2024. So yeah, I mean it wasn't a great tournament for Magnus, and well, he sort of didn't last the whole course. But one of the interesting things about him not doing so well was that he played a few games against some of the lesser gods. And well, that's often very instructive. Reminds me a little bit of when Leela plays weaker engines in the TCEC Cup. You tend to see these incredibly smooth positional performances that you might not see, you know, when Leela's playing Stockfish, which is resisting and fighting back as only Stockfish can. And this game I saw live, and I really liked it somehow. A really nice positional performance with lots of little points. So let's have a look at how it went. So knight f3, knight f6, c4, e6, g3, d5, bishop g2, d4, d3, c5, and now a very interesting idea, e4. And at first sight you might think, oh, you know, white's just setting up some sort of reversed check Benoni structure, you know, just going to block the center and then try and advance on the wing somehow. But it's a little bit more than that. The key point is that you play e4, but black can't actually stop you from playing e5. That means that it's not just some sort of check Benoni structure. It's turning into some sort of King's Indian attack where you've got a pawn on c4 already, which is doing two things. It covers the d5 square, so takes that d5 square away from black's pieces, and also sort of holds back the black queen side, b5 and c4. So actually it's pretty nice for white, and I'd seen this idea a little while back. It was on Twitter actually. There's a number of players who are always posting interesting stuff, including me of course, but it wasn't me in this case, and yeah, pointed out this idea, and it's actually, yeah, kind of challenging for black. I mean, Stockfish suggested playing d takes e3 in actual fact, which I think would probably be my preference, I think, because I don't particularly like those King's Indian attack structures as black, and here at least with an open center, and you know, you feel like black's got chances to get some sort of normal game and some normal play. After black's knight c6, e5, knight d7, queen e2, then yeah, I mean, I do just simply find it hard to know what exactly I'm going to do with black. Yeah, where am I going to put my king? What am I going to do? And indeed, in this game, black really struggled with that. So queen c7, bishop f4, and now actually black took what turned out to be rather a critical decision. It looked completely natural and normal, but it's probably yeah, quite significant. Black played the move h6, and the idea of course is to play g5 and chase the bishop away, but you know that white's going to play h4. But the idea, I suppose, is that black's thinking, well, I'm going to put my king on the queen side. Since white's got some sort of build up on the king side, I'll put my king on the queen side, stops the knight coming to g5, and who knows, if the white king castles on the king side, maybe black gets g5 himself. But the engine's not at all keen on that, really, and I was quite surprised to see what Torch came up with somehow. And what Torch was doing was playing the move bishop e7 simply, looks normal, and after knight bd2, playing the move, first of all, rook b8, castles, and then knight f8. This is the key point. And what are you doing? You're just trying to bring the knight round to g6, and that's, yeah, targeting this bishop on f4 and also attacking the pawn on e5. And the fact that you're targeting the bishop on f4 really restricts white from moving forward. And if white plays the move h4, then black's going to play the move h5, not h6 like Hardaway did in the game, but h5 so that the knight can come to g6. It's really interesting and quite shocking, and I hadn't expected it at all somehow. Funnily enough, in this game of Stockfishes against Torch, things got very concrete. White played the move g4 to let the bishop drop back to g3. I've actually played this this idea in Tromso 2014. Not exactly this position, but this idea in the King's Indian attack of dropping the bishop back to g3. It worked very well. It was against a Singaporean, very young player who's now a very strong player, grandmaster, I think. But yeah, in order to avoid that, Torch played the move f5. And the idea is you're going to play knight g6, and when the bishop moves back to g3, you're going to play f4. So Stockfish played very concretely, took on g7. Quite interesting. You might expect to take the bishop rather than take the knight on f8. But I think the point was that knight g6, the knight's going to come into f4. So Stockfish would rather take the knight on f8. And yeah, I mean, the game just got rather crazy. h3, h5 takes, and e5, knight e4, bishop takes h3, exploiting the pin, knight g3, bishop g4. And well, it looks a little bit ropey for black to me, but the engine seemed to feel that the black was doing okay, and indeed Stockfish managed to Torch rather managed to hold this against Stockfish, which is normally a good indication that things are okay for black. But I think it just shows, you know, what the engines are sort of thinking about the position. I mean, it's always the case that when the engines feel that there's long-term danger, that they're you know, straining mightily to really make something happen and really unbalance the position. And yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing here what Torch is doing. So I thought that was really interesting. I mean, after h6, h4, b6, knight d2, bishop b7, Magnus just played the move a3. And I mean, it stops knight b4, but it's also just thinking about playing b4. And it's just putting it in there, basically, and letting black think about what black wants to do. I mean, I was kind of expecting black to play a5 to at least really try and clamp down on the b4 break a bit. I mean, no, white might, pardon me, white might play b4 as a pawn sack anyway, but, you know, at least you've, when you end up with a piece on b4 later after capturing, you know, at least it's reinforced somehow. But black played the move bishop e7, just waiting a little bit, and h5 from Magnus, just clamping down on the king side there. And castle queen side was played by black. It's quite interesting that the engines just do not want that at all. I mean, in the King's Indian attack, it always feels scary to castle on the king side because, you know, if you castle king side, white could have a g4 to g5, or these ideas of knight h2 to g4, knight e4 into f6, that sort of stuff. You know, it makes you very nervous, but the engines think that the danger there is less than on the queen side, where white will just have the b4 break to open stuff up. So after castle queen side, yeah, I mean, the engines are thinking it's +1 or something already, you know. And now this next move was very nice. King f1. I like this very much indeed. I mean, the key point is that, you know, black does have the move g5 at some stage. And white, you know, white's got to think what he wants to do about that. By keeping the rook on h1, white ensures that you can just take on knight g5 by taking on g6 and then grabbing the pawn on h6. So here, by playing the king to f1, you're just keeping that rook in the vicinity of the king side, just to make sure that black doesn't do anything worrying on that wing. And at the same time, you're still ready to play a move like b4 and break open the king side. And you know what you can actually do is you can put your king to g1, and then it can just come around to h2, and then you can bring the rook over to b1. You know, so you can just you know, delay loosening your grip on the king side just to make sure black stays bottled up. And then at some stage you can just move over when you want to. It's a very nice move, very unhurried, you know, really saying I've got all the time in the world, but you're not going to be able to do anything. So black played the move rook d g8, vaguely looking for g5, and knight e4 was played. And yeah, here black now probably did something that he shouldn't have done, but it's not easy to give good advice to black here somehow. I mean, if you play king b8, the engines were actually looking at this nice idea: takes, and then knight d6. So you just block the bishop's protection of b4, and you're threatening knight b7, maybe just to open the long diagonal. Knight f7 is another threat. It's just a very unpleasant position for black, and a bit hard to know what exactly to do with your position. So black didn't want to do that. So what black did was, I think black decided, well, I've got to force something to happen, right? I can't just wait here. So black took on e5, hoping to provoke a crisis. But Magnus just played b4 here, and just basically said, okay, I'm putting some more pressure on the queen side. You've got a little problem with the old pin here. Good luck with that. And black kept on trying to force matters by playing the next move, f5. I mean, the problem is if you don't do anything, then white could open the c file with b takes c5. White could also just play b5 and then just go to open the a file later with a4 to a5. And counterplay is pretty rough, really, so you can understand why black did this, but well, basically what it gave Magnus was the chance to start swapping off pieces, and yeah, the resulting endgame is very, very nasty. So takes queen c6 check played, f3 knight takes f3. So black trying to get there's various ways of resolving all this, but it always leads to pretty much the same thing here. Takes, knight g5 and rook e1. Knight takes e6 takes. And what have we got in this position? I mean, what is the result of this? I mean, you might think, well, black hasn't done too badly, maybe. He's swapped off a lot of pieces, and he survived. He's not getting mated, which is obviously quite pleasant. But the big problem is that the number of pawn weaknesses that black has accumulated is horrible, really. I mean, all these guys, g7, d4, b6, a7 are on dark squares. So pray for white's dark squared bishop, and white's going to follow up with b5 just to make sure those pawns are fixed. On top of that, the f5 pawn can't be protected by the g pawn, which is restricted by the pawn on h5. So I mean, there's another target there. It's just basically there's just a massive accumulation of static weaknesses, and yeah, it just happened in 24 moves. And the engines are saying 3.72, for white. So just absolutely, completely winning. Not a hope for black. And yeah, black's big problem here as well is that, yeah, you just can't abandon the e file. But that means then that, and Magnus just moving in there just to force it a little bit, eyeing the f5 pawn, maybe preparing rook g6, probably king f3, b5, a4 will go first. Black can't afford to just give away the e file, so ends up swapping off rooks. But what that means is that there's no possibility for any counterplay whatsoever, and it's all about the static weaknesses. And well, they always talk about the principle of two weaknesses. Well, being needed to secure a win, black's probably got about 5 or something. So it's just totally hopeless. But yeah, so smooth somehow, yeah, and it's just quite nice to see these sort of games where not very much happens, but just yeah, just more accurate play from one player, and suddenly the whole position's collapsing. So b5 played, very important, just to fix this pawn on a7. Note that because black had to play bishop f6 to swap off rooks, the pawn on a3 is no longer attacked by the bishop, so Magnus takes that opportunity. King d7, a4, king e6, and bishop b8. Magnus is going after the pawn. So black tried to be a little bit clever there and play king d6 to c5, b4. Now, in all fairness, you didn't really need to do very much, because after king c5, a5 is good, but maybe that black might play bishop c7 and just be a little bit irritating there. So Magnus just redeployed his bishop and attacked the pawn on g7 and d4. You see how easy it is to play this position when you're just when you're just attacking pawns on the color square of your bishop. So bishop f6 was played, and well, rather than calculate anything, Magnus just played bishop c7, hitting the pawn on b6, stopping the king from coming into b4. And I mean, you're threatening a5. That's possible. You know, so you can just create a pass b pawn. But I mean, there's also no rush. I mean, Magnus just played king f3 here, and bishop d2 was played to stop a5. But okay, you know, now we've looked at that weakness, we've forced some sort of reaction, and now we're just moving back to the other side. Bishop b5, hitting the pawn on g7, and also hitting the pawn on d4 as well. So bishop e3 played by black, and black's sort of vaguely thinking, well, you know, maybe I'll be able to try and do something like this sometime. I was expecting bishop f4, which is actually very strong, just to force the exchange of bishops there. That's going to work pretty well. But Magnus just took on g7 first, and after king b4, just went back to f4 now. And obviously, if the bishop moves away, then h6 is hanging. So we're just going to get pass pawns pretty much everywhere. And if you just take on there, well, I mean, there's all sorts of wins, but this is pretty simple. And then we've either got c5 or g4, or in actual fact, the pawn on d4 is hanging because the black king can't hold it. So total and utter, yeah. Basically, everything that's wrong with the black position is wrong there, and black resigned. So there we are, just not a complicated game, but I just thought there were some very nice points there. This e4 move, quite unexpected. If you haven't seen it before, you could easily miss it as black. I thought that the engine defense, bringing the knight round to f8 here, was really nice. I mean, it's just always, you know, the engine's managing to, you know, to bring some sort of concreteness and some sort of hitting back at the opponent's position into pretty much any situation, you know, and I thought that was really nice. I like very much, you know, Magnus's move, king f1, which was very unhurried, really. You know, it's just leaving the rook on h1 for the moment, making sure that black can't do anything, and just slowly preparing to, you know, to put all your pieces into place. And I thought that was really, really nice. And then, yeah, you know, the whole final conclusion to it. I think just the, you know, the way the position looked, you know, after all these exchanges, and just to, you know, to see a position where material is equal, and you might think, well, you know, at least black survived, not getting mated, but, you know, so many positional weaknesses, not double pawns or anything, but you know, isolated pawns, fractured pawns, pawns that are going to be absolutely nailed to the wrong color square, a perfect target for the opponent's bishop. Yeah, just a really nice game, and definitely something that you can, you know, you could have as a sort of a model game in your head for, you know, how can I play these sort of positions? Because obviously this was, you know, incredibly simple win for Magnus. I mean, he does these sort of wins like no one else really, and yeah, with no complexity, no calculation whatsoever, just you know, positional play, well worth trying to emulate. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed that, and stay tuned for many more videos. Thanks for watching.